In this lesson, we will learn about Microsoft Entra ID. First, we will answer the question, what is Microsoft Entra ID? Then we will learn about Microsoft Entra tenants and Microsoft Entra ID characteristics. After that, we will learn about the Entra ID authentication and authorization process. Finally, we will conclude our lesson with the review questions. So what is Microsoft Entra ID? Microsoft Entra ID is an identity provider which allows to create identity objects such as users, groups, devices, apps, and their associated roles, policies, and services. Microsoft Entra ID is part of the platform as a service, which offers a comprehensive solution for managing identities, enforcing access policies, and securing applications and data in the cloud and on-premises. Let's learn about Microsoft Entra tenants. As a platform as a service, one or more Entra ID tenants can be created by a company, an organization, or a user for their own uses. An Entra ID tenant is implemented specially to ensure the isolation from other tenants. It serves as the security boundary and a container for its objects such as users, groups, and applications. In the Entra ID service provided by Microsoft, there's so many tenants created or deleted daily. Even though running on the same platform, the objects in each tenant are absolutely isolated from other tenants. Let's learn about the first characteristics of Microsoft Entra ID. As you may know, each Microsoft Entra tenant is assigned with a default domain name uniquely identified in the onmicrosoft.com namespace. Therefore, the tenant default domain name consists of a unique prefix and is followed by .onmicrosoft.com suffix. For example, itlifeskills.onmicrosoft.com. When a new object is created in the tenant, it is identified by the default domain name. For example, when you create a new user object, Ryan.Brown, in this tenant, it is identified by the default domain name at itlifeskills.onmicrosoft.com. Besides, Microsoft allows to add custom domains to the same Microsoft Entra tenant to identify the tenant objects with the custom domain. For example, the custom domain itlifeskills.com can be added to this tenant. However, to be added, the custom domain must be available on the public DNS domain namespace and is verified it is owned by the company or organization. After added, the custom domain can be used to identify all the objects in the tenant. For example, the user Ryan.Brown can now be identified as at itlifeskills.com. Here are some additional characteristics for Microsoft Entra ID. Microsoft Entra ID is a multi-tenant directory service to provide identity solution designed for internet-based applications. Microsoft Entra users and groups are created in a flat structure and there are no OUs or GPOs. Microsoft Entra ID uses HTTP and HTTPS protocols such as SAML or WS Federation and OpenID Connect for authentication. Microsoft Entra ID uses OAuth for authorization. As you may know, the main functions of Microsoft Entra ID is authentication and authorization. However, before the Entra ID can perform its function, the objects such as user accounts, applications, or devices must be created with unique identities in Microsoft Entra ID to allow them to be authenticated and receive tokens sent by Microsoft Entra ID. Next, the application must establish the trust relationship with Microsoft Entra ID, which allows it to grant the permissions to the Entra ID tenant users, applications, or devices to consume its functions. After the trust relationship established, the application can have Microsoft Entra ID to authenticate any tokens that a client sends to it to request the access, or it can obtain the Microsoft Entra ID signing key, which allows it to decrypt any tokens received from the clients. Here is a standard authentication and authorization process with Microsoft Entra ID. First, the client provides the identity of the user in the form of username and password or security key to Microsoft Entra ID. After verifying the user identity, Microsoft Entra ID sends back to the client a token signed with the private signing key. The client then forwards the token to the application to request access. Upon receiving the token and assuming the application have already obtained the public signing key from Microsoft Entra ID, the application decrypts the token with its public signing key and it finds the user information provided in the token and authorizes the access based on the permissions of the user. So what is a token? A token is a cryptographic signed document which contains the claims to identify the object. Here are four common claims. The first claim is the subject, which is used to identify the object that is using the client to request access to the application. The subject is an immutable, non-reusable identifier. The second claim is issue at, which is the date and time when the token is issued. The third claim is the expiration, which is the date and time when the token is no longer valid. And the fourth claim is the audience. The audience is used to inform the application that the token is for the application itself and not for any other applications. Let's conclude our lesson with the review questions.